the cloud. There we go. Perfect. So this is the first day of our 3-day challenge. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I know it's not easy. And as we were chatting, it's first thing Monday morning, and I didn't really think about that. But hopefully this will inject you with a whole bunch of energy to go forward into your day with. We're going to go through the next 3 days together, same bat time, same bat channel each day. It's going to be a ton of fun. There's a whole bunch of lovely women that I have who have been gracious enough to come on board with me, and they will be our guests each day. The way this is going to work is I will do my thing and then they will do their thing. And if you have questions, you can let us know in the chat. If anybody wants to introduce yourselves, feel free to do that in the chat. I know quite a few of you. Really excited to see some familiar faces and some new ones. So welcome. Here's our days together. The first day is today. We're talking about scheduling for energy and joy. And when it comes to being a business owner and entrepreneur, scheduling is everything. Bringing intention into that is, it's something that lets you harness the power of being a business owner. There's a lot of responsibility and a lot of stress that comes with this, but scheduling is one of those strengths and assets that we get from being a business owner. So when we start to leverage it for ourselves, that's when we start to really see the benefits that come with being in business and not just the responsibilities and the stress that come with it. So Kerry's going to be our guest today, and she's going to walk us through a concept there that she's going to share with us later. Kerry's been a mentor of mine since before she knew me. She's an incredible lady who builds these really beautiful containers for people to become inspired in their entrepreneurship journey. And she's also the founder of Fresh Ideas Collectives, which is inspiring events for women entrepreneurs and creatives. So if you are into events and you're in the Stratford area or online events, Kerry is, she's just started doing her online events. So that is something you might want to reach out to and connect with her. Her link is in the chat now, as is mine. So tomorrow I have another guest on, which is Michelle. I met Michelle recently. She's a nurse psychotherapist, and she offers counseling to Quinte and all of Ontario. And she's going to be helping us talk about authenticity for impact. Business is one of those things when we start, we're really connected to the reason we're doing this. You don't take that leap unless you're really deeply connected to it. But once you get into the weeds of running business, you start getting a lot of messages from a lot of places, and you can really lose that ability to tap into the spark that you set out with. And quite often we can get into places of anxiety and fear and scarcity. And the skill set Michelle has, I met her when I went to one of her workshops where she was helping entrepreneurs handle the stress of being in business. And she has some practices she's going to teach us, like body scanning and tapping, to help bring us out of anxiety and fear and bring us back into a grounded space where we can connect to the authenticity that is the best place to be making business choices from and sales calls from. Really important element of business growth. So that's day 2. That's going to be a lot of fun as well. They're all going to be fun. Day 3 is I have Hadriana Leo. I think I saw her pop on. Hadriana is the money navigator, and this woman helps people build a wealth mindset. And her and I both love to say we love money. So when we're in business, we really need to be able to claim that. But it's more than just, numbers in the bank. That gets old really fast and it loses its luster. And it's not a place of intrinsic motivation for us, but tapping into what we want money for, what legacy is it going to build for us, and what wealth really means to us. That helps us grow our business because we know why. And Hadriana she's gonna help us connect to that. That's her genius. That's what she does. Okay, I'm gonna get back to my app here. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do together. It's gonna be the next 3 days. I'm gonna send out replays for those who can't join live. Either way, I totally get it. Sometimes I'm a replay person. Sometimes I can hop on live. Whichever way, I'm very grateful to have you join us. And I hope you really get that spark back from your business by the time we're done here on Valentine's Day. That's what I want you to leave with. So who am I? This is me. My name is Cheyanne. I am a marketing coach and consultant. I operate under the name of CO Marketing. And I work with B2B, B2C, service-based, product-based, online, brick and mortar. I work with a huge range of people. And what connects the people that I work with, the thread that runs through, is that they're all focused on contributing. They have some kind of impact they want to make through their business. They really have a difference that they're trying to create, and something that they're trying to make better in their communities. Whether it's a geographic community or their professional community, there's an impact for them behind their business. And I have worked with over 100 local businesses and organizations. It's been an incredible journey. I deeply appreciate the fact that I get to use my business to help amplify the voices of businesses looking to make an impact. And just so you really understand how strong authentic marketing, which is the type of marketing that I believe in, which is marketing without the ick, how strong it can really be for creating sustainable business growth. One of my clients who I've worked with for over 5 years, local gym in Quinte West, we've been through COVID years. We've been through big names moving into the market of competitors, but using marketing in a really authentic way has brought such sustainable business growth that we've gone from 5K a month in revenue to 35K a month in revenue. So doing business and doing marketing in this kind of way that's really sustainable and really authentic, it really brings actual business growth. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's not snake oil. It's something you need to show up for and invest in. But if you're really serious about building a business, this is one of the ways that it will support you in that goal. Here's our day today. This is Kerry. She's on the call. Hi, Kerry. She's going to talk later for us. We're going to talk today about scheduling for energy and joy. Time management and productivity can be such a cold, boring topic. I think I have read every book that's out there on it. And quite frequently, I find that topic comes from a place that often there's a very similar lifestyle or life situation to the people really pushing the strategies and tactics. And they don't always fit for everybody. That's the reality, right? And so often when we look at productivity and scheduling ourselves, we're trying to apply someone else's advice. And that's where you can end up overscheduling. You can get burnt out. You can assume you should have a certain level of productivity, but you're really not able to do that, or you're not being mindful of your own energy cycles. And that's when you start to just be stressed out by your business. That's when you get really, really disheartened. And that's when you end up on Indeed because you're like, why am I doing all of this? So scheduling for energy and joy, that's a different way to approach it, where you're making sure your schedule is fueling you so that you can pour into your business. And then that creates something that's sustainable, and it creates growth that becomes sustainable because you're able to keep showing up. You're not burning yourself out. And I have learned a lot of this from Kerry because we've been in a lot of containers together. And as I've gone through my own journey in becoming a business owner, it's been pieces that she's given me that's really helped me create a schedule that's allowed me to be successful. So Kerry's great, Fresh Idea Collective, an amazing container. Check it out. And my story in this, I want you guys to understand that the power of scheduling for your business is to make it your own. Because with the stress and the responsibility we take on as entrepreneurs or business owners, which is statistically proven, we are all probably very comfortable with risk on a level that the average people in the population aren't. That's just the nature of us business owners. But it doesn't mean it doesn't come with stress. We are voluntarily putting ourselves into a place that brings additional stress into our lives. We need to be responsible around that. And part of that for me was getting intentional with my scheduling. That meant making sure I was mindful that the days I was building and the routines I was building supported my business and supported my joy and my energy. Because if I was going to be in business and take on all of that stress, I needed to counterbalance it. I needed to be intentional about that. Because when I don't, I crash and I burn out. And that's when I start looking for a job as opposed to a business. So my story, I'm a mom of 3. Not only am I a mom of 3, I'm a single mom of 3. I have a 12, 10, and 8-year-old, super busy kids. One's a competitive dancer. I have an ice skater. I have piano lessons, art classes, very busy household. And while I'm juggling that, I'm also a business owner. I am not Superwoman. I have a limited amount of energy and I'm an intense person, so my focus can get very scattered. The reason I'm able to do this and live my life this way is because of scheduling. And because I took that power that I get from being a business owner and I used it for myself. I said, okay, I'm going to be stressed out because that's the nature of expansion, but I'm going to make sure I intentionally schedule the counterbalances in. So I made it work for my life because I really valued being able to pick up my kids after school and that type of thing. And because I'm a business owner, I only work during their school days. But the flip side for me was that I wanted to be able to grow my business, which means sometimes I'm putting in hours on the weekend. And we have a common narrative around that being, we're violating our own boundaries or something. And that's true for some people. But because I design my schedule based on my own value system, I know when I sit down to work on the weekend, it doesn't feel like a punishment. It's giving me the gift of picking my kids up at the end of the day from school, even though I'm a single mom. So approaching your scheduling in a way that it's about empowering your values and empowering the life you want to live, and then understanding that your business is giving you that gift. Yes, you're putting hours in. Yes, you're doing that, but it's because this is the trade-off. The control and flexibility that you get because of that is well worth it. So make your business work with your life. That's the beauty of being an entrepreneur and a small business owner, is that you have that privilege. You're not on someone else's time, you're on your own time. So you get the responsibility, but also the benefit of that. It's a really beautiful gift when you go into it in that direction. Here we're going to talk about, this is why scheduling helps you grow your business. This is the benefits it brings in your business. And when we start to recognize the power these type of things, scheduling sounds so boring. It can be such a boring concept, time management and productivity. It's like, why do I need more work in my life? But when we start to understand that this is one of the principles of business growth, it becomes well worth it to spend some time developing this skill set and to get intentional with it. So this is called the Time Management Matrix by Stephen Covey from the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Incredible book. It will change your life if you haven't read it yet. If you haven't, just taken this piece, you can anchor to this concept here alone, you will really find it can become a guiding star for you. So it's not that you are always operating in perfection. That's not life. That's not how we work. It will never happen. Even though I'm much more structured and routine than I ever was before, I still end up in quadrant 1. It's more about, once you set this as your intention, when things pull you off because you're taking on a bunch of new stuff or family life gets stressful, it means you know to pull yourself back in. It means that you know what alignment looks like for you, and when you're out of alignment. So this type of thing you want to set as your standard. This is where you want to be. So across the top, we have urgent and not urgent. And across the side, we have important and not important. These are different quadrants of tasks. I want you to kind of reflect on what you did last week, or maybe what you have planned for this week. And I want you to decide, like, what quadrants are these falling into? Not even what you have planned, but what you will actually spend your time doing. Because quite often our plan is different than our execution. So quadrant 1 is things that are urgent and important. These are emergencies. These are fires we're putting out, crises we're taking care of. These are high cortisol tasks. You are stressed, you are anxious, you are running on adrenaline because these need to be dealt with right now. This is quite frequently the place burnout comes from. If you are spending a lot of your time in quadrant 1, that's when your business can become overwhelming and not worth it. And you're like, I'm always stressed out. Why am I doing this to myself? This is quite often where we end up when we start questioning, why are we even in business? Clearly not a place we want to spend a lot of time, but it is a common place for us to be until we get intentional with our schedules. Quadrant 2 is gold. This is where we want to spend as much time as possible. This is where we're dealing with tasks that are important, but not urgent. We are planning, we are proactive. This is where we start to be able to look 5 steps ahead in our business and where are we going and how do we take ourselves there? This is where business growth comes from. And the only way to do this is to start scheduling your time ahead so that you are dealing with things before they become urgent. You give yourself the gift of space and time to bring creativity and problem solving to your planning. And that's when you start having a business that is sustainably growing, because the quality of time you bring to it is completely different. Down in quadrant 3, we have urgent and not important. And these are interruptions. These are distractions. These are the email that pops up in your inbox and someone else is having a panic moment and you get caught up in it. These are things that you want to minimize 100%, but they're very easy to get caught up in. Quadrant 4 is complete time wasters. These are not urgent and not important. These are things like scrolling social media because you're trying to zone out. And quite often what you'll find is when you spend a lot of time in quadrant 1, because you are operating under a high level of stress and a high level of adrenaline and cortisol, you will try to counterbalance it by spending a lot more time in quadrant 4. So it's kind of your attempt to down regulate yourself. So if you consider what you've been doing the last little while, if you're, kind of fed up with your business, it's highly likely there's been a lot of time in quadrant 1 where you're really running around putting out fires, and that's not a pleasant place to be. It's somewhere we end up occasionally, that's life, but when we're there all the time because we've taken on an additional responsibility of running a business, it's not pleasant, and it doesn't have to be that way. And scheduling is how we go down a different path. That's how we spend more time in quadrant 2. So how this helps you grow your business is that when you start to schedule yourself out and you get intentional to bring joy and energy into your life with your schedule, you get the space to be strategic. You get to start thinking 5 steps ahead in your business, and you get to be proactive. That completely changes the game. This puts you at a higher level of performing in business than your competitors. And this is where we start to move from working in our business to on our business. So many of us know that saying, and we know it's the next thing we need to do to hit the next level of growth, but we're just not sure how that's possibly going to happen because we're so busy running around in quadrant 1 putting out fires that we have no time for quadrant 2, which is where we work on our business. And you do that by getting intentional with your schedule, building in your quadrant 2 time blocks. The other piece, and this is something that when you are a small business owner or an entrepreneur, you have to reframe the concept of self-care. Self-care is really a business asset because you are your business. You're showing up for your sales calls. You're showing up for your webinars. You're creating your content. You're the one out networking. You're the one in your brick and mortar talking to clients. So if your emotional state is anxious and fearful and you're not tapped in to the inspiration of why you're in business, you're not going to be able to be as productive or as creative. Your ability to schedule in time for things that bring you joy and energy is what's going to help you stay regulated more often than not. And it's what's going to help you fight against the stress that naturally comes with running a business. So self-care is a really important business activity. It creates regulation, which leads to more productivity and more creativity. And those are the things that fuel business growth. They're very important to bring in. They're not something that we want to dismiss or we want to kind of like set aside. Like I said earlier, single mom of 3, and I'm a business owner. If I am not taking the time to do things like moving my body or eating nourishing foods or disconnecting and unplugging, that's crucially important. Spending time connecting with others, those type of things, they fuel my business growth. And I was only able to start making room for them when I started scheduling, and not just scheduling to be like max productive. There's some bro science out there about like, get as many hours in the day as possible. But when I started scheduling in a way to bring me joy and energy, that's when I started folding those things in. And that's when my business really started to grow. And the other piece around that is that for women, sometimes our energy cycles, they can be very different from what's commonly used to support productivity recommendations. So really getting to know your own energy cycles and building around that, that's another privilege of being an entrepreneur. that you get to decide. I know which weeks I am going to be more creative, and I know which weeks I'm going to be more analytical, and I schedule my business tasks based on my energy. And that maximizes not just my productivity, but my enjoyment of running a business. If I'm trying to be extroverted when I'm in an introverted place, I hate business and I don't understand why I'm doing it. But when I align it, then I love it. And I think it's the best thing ever. So really making this type of thing your own is really important. Marketing. Marketing is my world. I love marketing. So we're going to talk. I'm going to take a quick drink here. We're going to talk around how marketing supports your business growth and how scheduling in your marketing is how you get good. I am a marketer by trade. I have a lot of clients and I run a lot of marketing for them. But even for myself, this is a piece I needed to get locked into, and understanding that the benefits of scheduling is what was going to fuel the impact of my marketing. And marketing fuels your business growth. So it's really important that you fold those in together. When we bring a schedule to our marketing, that's when we start to get consistent. And consistency benefits us in building an audience in a few ways. The more consistent we are, the easier it is for our audience to trust us. That builds a level of congruency and reliability that creates an association with our brand that we're a reliable business. We're a consistent kind of person. And that's the type of people that someone wants to do business with. So it's really important to create trust, and it also creates engagement. If you're consistently showing up, if it's a monthly webinar, if it's, once a day on social media, whatever it is, it means that your audience knows when to anticipate you. And it means that they know when they get to engage with you. And that's how you start to nurture an audience. And a piece that we often don't recognize when we're trying to build a business, and we're like, okay, I built the website, I have my product or service, I have no sales, what's happening? You can't just build it and hope they come. You have to create a nurtured audience. Right now in the marketing world, your audience is your biggest asset. And the way you create an audience is by consistently showing up. And that only happens if you schedule. Because if you're not scheduling your marketing activities, you're not going to be consistent. There's very few people in this world, especially business owners and entrepreneurs, who every day at the same time suddenly go, I want to post on social media. It just doesn't work that way. We need to schedule those activities ahead of time to make sure we're becoming consistent for our audience. And then another piece that this brings us is it allows us to be creative. And when I'm working with business owners or entrepreneurs who are starting and they're in that DIY stage of marketing, I advise them to, at minimal, have 3 marketing meetings with themselves. So your first one's going to be your annual marketing meeting, where you sit down and you plan out your big goals for the year, your big concepts for the year, decide on your channels, that type of thing. Your second's going to be your monthly marketing meeting, where you create your content, you really map out the month of what you're going to be doing on your channels. And then your third one is at least once a week, sitting down and engaging with your audience, going to your comments, going to your emails, your inbox, checking how things are performing, and responding to any messages that you've received. So when you do those 3 things, the really cool thing that happens is you've now given yourself space to think ahead. Even if you're in a monthly marketing meeting with yourself and you're sitting down and you're looking a month ahead, it means you can also start to think, like right now, we're just about to Valentine's Day. You could be thinking about spring. You could be thinking, what promos could I run? Or what kind of campaigns could I bring out? And when you do that, you give your brain time to simmer on it. And that's when your creativity really starts to spark. You'll be walking around for the next week and something will pop up and it'll inspire you. And that's where you start to become really creative with your business, especially with your marketing, with your promotions. You could be thinking all the way ahead into summer. Some of my clients right now, we're planning out summer campaigns. And that's when the real juice of marketing starts to be created. Because when you are coming at it from a place that stands out because you've brought in something really creative and inspirational, that's when you gain traction. That's when you gain attention, and that's when you grow an audience, and that's when you connect with people. Connection is the next piece. And this is why it becomes really important to schedule yourself in a way that brings you joy and energy, because emotional contagion is a huge part of business that we don't necessarily recognize enough, especially if you're DIYing. Again, if you're on the sales calls, if you're on the webinars, if you're creating the content, the emotional state that you're in when you're doing those things is going to be received by your audience or your clients or your customers. If you are anxious or burnt out or running on fumes, they're going to feel that. The emotional contagion is going to transfer that to them. And it will be very difficult to draw people into your business or your channels if the emotion that you're unintentionally putting across is one of overwhelm and fear and scarcity. You really want to be able to tap back into the place of inspiration, that spark that you decided to create a business from, because that's what's going to inspire people. That's what's going to get them on your email list. That's what's going to get them following you on social media. That's why they're going to reach out. That's why they're going to walk into your store. That's why they're going to ask for a connection call. That type of energy and that type of emotion is the one you want them to feel from you. And we can only get access to these things when we are intentionally scheduling ourselves. It becomes very difficult to tap into these things if our schedule is not supporting our own joy and our own energy. And then we're losing all of these, and these create business growth. These are the reasons my gym client has gone from 5K to 35K in 5 years. It was not instant, but it's sustainable. We've consistently showed up. We've connected. We've been creative because we're thinking ahead, because we have a schedule. And the only reason I can do that for my client is because I have a schedule for myself, and it's one that refuels me. I'm not working away when I have no energy and becoming so depleted that I'm throwing out any social media post just to check off the box, right? I'm really investing in my ability to invest in my client, and that pours forward into the audience, and the audience feels that, and then they're able to create a connection with the business. So that is my spiel. Now we're going to get, Kerry is going to walk us through her concept. Kerry's got a great mind for this. I'm super excited to hear it. So Kerry, the floor is all yours.
Thanks so much. Hi to everybody. I recognize some faces for sure. And for those I don't know, hello, it's a pleasure to connect with you. I don't know, we can just shut it down right now. I think Cheyanne's given us quite a bit to chew on, and I think that it's all good. And I love when women share from their own experiences, their own real life. Like you said, Cheyanne, a lot of the stress that we put on ourselves is when we start comparing ourselves to whether it's the bro marketers or, people who just are not in the same season of life. So like, why don't you let me just ask you, put in the Zoom chat, let me know, like, what would you consider your season of life to be right now? This wasn't really planned, but I think let's just engage a little bit. Are you like, and not everyone's a mom, so I'm not assuming that, but like maybe some of you have small kids at home. Some of you are, you're just like maybe in a restart mode. Maybe, you're in a career transition mode. What's the season for you? For me, I'll tell you that my 2 kids are now at university. So I am, Hadriana, an empty nester. You're almost one. And I was just there. So I'll tell you right now, my season of life right now is brand new to me. And it's different maybe from anyone else on this call. And so, yeah, some of you are saying that you have school age kids, which of course is different before they can drive versus after they can drive. I just want to point out that there's different seasons, and we need to kind of embrace where we're at. And so when I was preparing for today, Cheyanne asked me to speak and gave me just, carte blanche, which I always love. I'm like, I just want to, convey one concept today. I know I could go in a million directions, but that's not helpful to any of us because it's Monday morning. And so the idea here then is like, what is one thing that we could apply across the board, no matter what season of life we're in? It is a concept that will work for all of us. And let's be honest, there aren't a lot of those. I find usually it's people saying this worked for me. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not you. And I'm also not in your season of life, to Cheyanne's point. It's like comparing apples and helicopters most of the time. So this simple concept that I actually, stumbled upon it earlier this year, so January, But when I stumbled on it, I realized it's actually a concept that I have been using for decades. And some of you don't know me, but I'm an editor, I'm a writer first and foremost. So I'm like, if you ask me what my core skill is, like I'm a writer. Really, my heart is writing. And sure, that's translated into community building and marketing and all the things I do. But at my core, I'm a writer. And one of my jobs was actually, I was a national magazine editor. So editing is something I'm really good at. And you know how when you do something, you don't even think it, you think, oh, everybody must do this. But here's the thing, we're talking about scheduling today. And I realized when I set upon this concept, which I'm about to drop in a moment, and that I edit my schedule constantly. I am constantly editing my schedule as much as I edit anything else in my life. So the concept that I just want to introduce you to, some of you may have heard it before, it's called addition by subtraction. So what happens when we talk about scheduling a lot, and whether it's adding energy and joy, productivity, all these things, very often we get in this mindset, okay, what do I need to add? Kerry, tell me a new app. Kerry, tell me a new tool. Kerry, tell me a new strategy, right? And let me add. And suddenly, let me do TikTok rather than Facebook. Let me do this. And suddenly it's more. It's more. And I don't have more time to do all the things. So the concept of addition by subtraction, let me give you a story to illustrate it. So I wasn't there, but allegedly Michelangelo was once asked how he sculpted the David, right? And for those of you, has anyone, let me just, show of hands or drop a note. If you've ever seen the David sculpture in person in Florence, Italy, maybe some of you have. Yes, so I saw it with my family over a decade ago. It's a work of art, right? It's a remarkable legacy of this
No,
individual,
y a la mía,
right?
calza
And
re
so
seco. Tan
this
seco
is
que absorbe
something,
el producto de
let
una
you,
vez. Eso es
I'll let
estresante.
you go ahead and mute it, Cheyanne. There we go. So the sculptor, Michelangelo, was asked, how did you sculpt the David? And he allegedly responded, I was not there, but allegedly responded, I just chiseled away everything that was not David. And many of us have heard that story before, but when I heard that recently, I thought, there it is. What is the art that you are trying to create in the world? Now, we're not all artists like Lori, but we all have a business, we all have a life that we're trying to craft, and a masterpiece we're really trying to achieve. Maybe you have that end goal in mind. And often it's not about adding more things to the David. It's about taking away everything that is not your masterpiece until you're left with the masterpiece. And that was an aha moment for me recently. I didn't realize there's actually a concept called addition by subtraction. It's used in industry, it's used in art, it's used in sports. And so because we just came off the big Super Bowl yesterday, let me sort of give you that sports analogy, which I also was reading about. So coaches use addition by subtraction always, or all the time. And so instead of, for instance, adding a player to the field, they will take off the one who is injured. They will take off the one who is not being effective, right? And so they do this subtracting rather than adding more. Like legally, you can't even add more than 11 players at a time, right? So it doesn't even make sense. So they've actually created that boundary. We need to do the same around our hours in our day, for instance, and Cheyanne referred to that. So rather than adding, it's a matter of what does not belong right now in this particular season of my life. And we need to be mindful that the season we're in this year might not be the season we were in last year. We are constantly transitioning. And so I find women in particular get frustrated when they couldn't do the thing they could do before. And I'm like, heck, we're not in the same season. Let's show ourselves some grace. Let's add by subtracting and let's move forward. Okay, so let's take a page from that sports coach's manual. All right, so there's three things, if you know me, I love the rule of three. So there are three things, three areas that we can subtract from in our business and our lives in order to be more effective and in fact, to expand our business. The first is people, the second is practices, and the third is priorities. And again, I didn't come up with these. This is something that sports folks use, but let's translate this to business. First of all, let's think about the people in our lives, right? And, whether or not they are a fountain or a drain, right? So everyone in our life is going to be, there's very few people who are neutral. I guess there's some who might be like bystanders, but either people add to our energy or they drain our energy. Now, let me say right up front, I'm not talking about your kids. All right. So I'm not saying kick those kids to the curb because they drain your energy. Yes, they do. But if we're going to get to priorities and number 3 in just a moment. So partners, kids, important relationships for you. Those, if that's a priority, then we're not kicking those people to the curb. Okay. So I'm not talking about those core people who should actually feed your joy, right? But who for a time may drain your energy. Let's be honest. So I want us to think about then, who are the people that perhaps are in our schedule right now, right? Let's think about that from a scheduling point of view. Maybe it's a client that we should never have said yes to. We had that feeling and we just knew they were going to be more trouble than good. And here we were desperate for money. Usually, that usually happens at the beginning. And now it might be time to let some clients go, right? The ones that are draining our energy. They're not adding, they're not serving us. Unfortunately, they just probably need to go. There may be other people, critics. There may be people, who are toxic. You know who I'm talking about. Somebody came to mind when I said that, probably for you. Whether that's an extended family member, whether that's, just a person in your sphere of influence. We need to think about the people who are taking up time, even if it's in our brain, right? They're living rent-free up in our head, and we need to maybe evict them and say, it's time, right? And I know this sounds a little bit, oh, that's a little bit harsh. I'm like, yes, but what we're talking about is creating a schedule of energy and joy that serves you and your business. And I don't know about you, I was a people pleaser for most of my life. So I just would keep people in the schedule just because I was afraid of what would people say if I dropped this from my schedule, right? It was the fear of, oh, nobody cares. Nobody cares except me for a time. I'm well beyond that phase, by the way. When you turn 50, I think you're like, ah, who cares? So here I am now saying, okay, who are the people that are fountains in my life versus drains? And let me make sure that I fill my life and my schedule with as many of those people that add joy and energy. All right, so and by the way, let me just add, this is not necessarily a live, like a person who's in your life. It might be a person on social media. Some of you need to stop following some people on social media, especially if they're your competitors, especially if they're 10 years ahead of you. And to look at their account drains your joy in your business and makes you want to feel like giving up because they're, first of all, maybe not in the same season of life at all, or in the same geography at all, right? Maybe you don't live in New York City. So stop comparing yourself to the woman who just had a $10 million launch or whatever. We hear of these things. I'm like, oh, I'm such a failure. No, unfollow. Let's start following the people who are fountains and not drains. Okay. So people who are actually in our lives, or maybe some online relationships. So that's the first part of the addition by subtraction concept, is to think about who do we really need to have in that schedule and in our lives. The second part is practices. Now, I know I alluded to football, but I'm not talking about football practices. I'm talking about habits. I'm talking about habits, things that are in our schedule, whether or not we put them on the schedule. So let me ask, this first of all, did any of you wake up to a phone alarm this morning? Were you woken by a ringing or nothing? So some of you wake up naturally. I'm very jealous. I have to get up a certain time in order to be at my, right, getting ready to go. But what happens in the winter is that I'll hit that snooze button, and that's the first thing I do in the day. And that's a practice. That's a habit. And I have to be mindful of that is not a practice that serves me. And I just had to push past. I'm like, that alarm rings and up I get. Mel Robbins has a great book called The 5-Second Rule. And if you struggle with this, by the way, it's a great book to read. So 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, feet over the side of the bed and I'm up, right? And suddenly you're up. And it's not 45 minutes later that you've actually lost 45 minutes of your day. Now you're up. Now, if you're like Kat, you're doing your yoga or your meditation, or if you're like me, you're walking your dog, you're getting those mental health connections points that Cheyanne referred to before you even start your day, so you can be more effective with the schedule you have in front of you. But just that single practice of getting up or hitting the snooze button is one of those practices. So part of your homework I want to give you is just to examine your day today as you go through it, and to observe your own practices and think of them that way in a third, a third party, just like a distance, if you can. Oh, that's an interesting practice. Observe it, right? Kind of like they teach in yoga as well. Observe it, maybe write it down. Notice the things that you do, and ask which of those practices in your day are a drain and which are a fountain, right? Which ones are serving you in your business? which ones are dragging you down. I'm going to tell you right now, you have the power to change them. Okay, so I mean, you do. We created the practices. We can change the practices. It takes some work and it takes some time, but challenges like this are great because, you know, whether it's a 3-day challenge or a 21-day challenge you set for yourself, go ahead and do it. You can change some of those practices that are perhaps interrupting the schedule that you want to have. The third part that I want to talk about briefly is priorities. That's the third one. So we talked about people, we talked about practices, and priorities. Again, we're talking about addition by subtraction. What are your priorities? You can call them goals. You can call them intentions. Maybe you call them resolutions. We're still at the beginning of 2024. So I do think that this is still a great time, whether it's for 2024 or fiscal year 24/25, right? However you look at that, you know, setting some goals and priorities and to say, is my schedule reflecting those priorities, right? Or if you're not sure what your priorities are, look at your schedule is the way I flip it, right? So I've got a big mom calendar on my fridge. I don't know if you guys have that one. And then I also have my Outlook calendar. So I have 2 calendars I can refer to, but the one for my family calendar clearly tells my family, I'm going to yoga on this day. I'm going to the gym on this day. I'm meeting this girlfriend for lunch this night, right? That tells me what's important to me. And I'll tell you, there was a long time I met no girlfriends. I met no friends. I was not in that phase of life where I had the space. Now I am. Now it's a priority because frankly, my kids can drive themselves around and I like to joke they can wipe themselves and feed themselves now. I'm very happy about that, you know, but that takes time. Now that I am in this phase, I'm saying, what is important to me? Well, I want to reconnect with some of those friends. I want to develop, you know, whatever, business networking. So is business networking on my calendar? Monthly. It is monthly on there. I know some of you belong to some communities that I'm a part of. And so that also, you show up for workshops, you show up for these networking things. That's reflecting that business connections are a priority for you. So this is individual, again, based on what 2024 is all about for you, what season you're in, but really determining what those priorities are and then making sure that your calendar and your schedule reflect that. Last note I want to make is that when we do this, when we do addition by subtraction, when we chisel away everything that is not the art of our life and our business, it leaves us with one thing, which is focus. And I don't know about you, but focus is tough in 2024 with all of the distractions, you know, this phone right here being, you know, chief among them. We need to just say, you know what, if I want to get some things done, the only way to do it, it's not going to happen by accident. It's going to happen with focus and intention. Exactly what Cheyanne's been talking about today. So my challenge for you, and Cheyanne, I have no idea if I'm at the time, but I'm going to wrap up here and happy to answer questions if that's what you want me to do, to say, you know what, let's take a look at this concept of addition by subtraction. Look at the people, the practices, and the priorities in our life right now and how our schedules reflect that. And ultimately realize that what that will lead us to is a more focused, more joyful, and more energetic schedule, I believe. That's one girl's opinion, and how you apply it is totally up to you. And, you know, again, you might want to focus on just people for a while, or priorities, or practices. Make it your own. But I will say that as an editor, it's one thing I've learned to do, and I hope that that was helpful for you. Thanks so much. Happy to answer any questions, but back over to you, Cheyanne.
That was great. Thank you, Kerry. And anybody have any questions for Kerry or I, drop them in the chat. One of the things I think we need to shift our perspective on is exactly what you've touched in this, is that time management is even more crucially energy management. It's not so much about where you're putting your hours and your minutes. It's about how well are you managing your energy, because we all have the same 24 hours. It's the amount of energy you have or do not have that you actually have flexibility with. And the idea of evaluating things on, is this a fountain or is this a drain, is absolutely crucial. That's exactly how we need to look at everything we're earmarking time for. And the quadrant kind of like handles that a little bit, where it makes you start to be critical about or discerning, is this a time waster? In which case your energy is going somewhere, but you're not getting anything back out of it. And we spend a lot of time in those type of places. And it's not about perfection. It's about intention. And Kerry, I think you really caught that piece with what you were giving us today, in that you need to know where you want to go. You need to know what you want this part of your life to look like. You have to have intention. That's the best place to create a schedule from. I know I've had to do it as my kids are school age. So I've had to decide as a mom at this age, what is it I want for them and want for myself over these 5 years, 10 years. And it's only when you sit back and evaluate on what matters to you and what your goals are and what your values are that you can then decide, okay, this is a drain and this is a fill, this is a fountain. And tomorrow, Michelle is going to help us really connect back to our value system of why we started our business, what it is we want to do for our clients and customers, as well as what we want to do for ourselves with that, because you need to have those answers before you can make the choices of what is worth my time and what isn't. Kerry, do you have anything you want to add to that? I know you have a lot of knowledge around this as well.
Yeah, I absolutely embrace that idea of energy management over time management. And it's a concept also that I've taken to heart long ago. And again, I think as a writer, I think of life as in chapters, right? So I'm like, that chapter is, and I'm happy to move through chapters, right? And it's not to say like I just get rid of all the people who were part of chapters 1 through 10. No, a lot of those people are coming with me through the future chapters, and some don't. I've moved cities. It's different, right? But, if you're okay with that, just from a mindfulness and just being okay with the mindset of it doesn't have to be the same as it was, and it won't be the same in the next chapter, but here I am. Be where your feet are, right? And just be there, be in that present moment and make it the best it can be, wherever that is. Life is like that, and give yourself grace. I think that that's key, that a lot of women I talk to, like I say, that comparison trap is the ultimate, um, you know, it cripples you in everything you do. It will stop you from feeling joy, and it will drain your energy. So yeah, that's the way I'm moving through 24, is looking for drains and fountains, in all sorts of forms, right? Whether it's whatever it might be. So that, yeah, I would just say, I'd encourage, like, again, like I say, that the people that practices the priorities, that's just something for you folks to think about as you go through your day. A little bit of homework, think about how you can apply that. And so I know I'll be doing the same this whole year, and hopefully altogether, if we meet next year, we'll say, yeah, that was time well spent.
Perfect. That sparked for me too. I started immediately looking at like, oh, I can use that editing process for myself. The piece I really want you guys to understand is this privilege of being able to really edit your schedule is something we get from being an entrepreneur and a small business owner. When you have complete control over that part of your time, we have lots of other things we have to do, but having that ability to set your schedule and to edit it and to focus where it fills you rather than drains you, that's something that comes with that risk of being an entrepreneur and a small business owner. It's a gift we get from our businesses. So it's a really beautiful thing to embrace. We'll wrap up here today. This was really good. Yes, Wendy says, no use in comparing your beginning to someone else's middle, or even beginning to someone else. Exactly. We're all different. And that's the beautiful piece about business that I want you guys to really come away with at the end of these 3 days. Do not try to replicate other people. It doesn't fuel business growth. The ironic thing is, the more individual and authentic you are in how you build your business, how you shape your business, and the time you spend in it, what you bring to the market, the stronger your business is. That's actually where real business development and growth is. Kat, do you have a question?
Not so much a question. I wanted to add to what you were talking about building up, if I may. It's simply because I think a lot of times we get lost in what that is for ourselves. And I'm right in the middle of training yoga and life coaching. And we just went through this, which I thought was perfect for me to add to you guys, was if you're not filled up, you can't deal with business day to day or problems. So you have to figure out what that is. But it has to be the things that I can't say I just want to go for a pedicure, because that might be a necessary, but it's not necessarily something that lights you up. And if it does, then that's your thing. For me, it's not. Like for me, it might be a walk or a soothing cup of hot chai tea that I love. So when you're thinking of those things, and if I can add a homework, we're challenged to do 100 self-care things of things that light you up. to me, that was quite difficult. For some of you, it may be easy, but if I encourage you to maybe do 10, and it could be a warm cup of tea, it could be a walk with a dog, it could be whatever it is for you, but it has to be that thing that lights you up. And then, as Kerry said, you start your mornings with at least 1, 2, 3 of those so that you are able to be full to take on your day. So I just wanted to add that.
It's beautiful. It's exactly it. It's again, it's not prescriptive. It's about what authentically regulates you, what brings you back to calm and to your center. And that's different for every single one of us. It could be different for me for one day than it is the next day. Sometimes I need to go out and be social. Sometimes I need to stay in and cocoon. It's about really, again, tapping back into your center and your core and not listening to all the outside advice. Take it in, but use what feels for you, right? Like really fit it for yourself, and then build a schedule around that. Build a schedule that will fuel you to keep building your business and growing your business. So thank you, ladies. We'll close it off here. Thank you, Kerry. Thank you, Kat. That was great advice. And join again tomorrow at 10. We'll have another practice. This one, we're going to teach some tapping and body scanning to help bring us back into the authenticity and clear out anxiety and fear. It's going to be great. See you guys tomorrow.